Mental health is especially vital right now in this period of history because the majority of us are living through a time that we have never seen with the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of us have more time on our hands, and a lot of us, our anxieties, our fears, our depressions are really coming to the forefront of our lives. And it's very important that we take time to address our mental wellness and, perhaps develop new tools to cope with this crisis until it passes, and to really make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. Time is probably one of the most valuable things that we can have in our lives, and if you are one of the lucky few that do have extra time on your hands right now, I suggest that you really use it wisely, even if it's doing nothing, resting, recuperating, letting your mind and body rest and rejuvenate during this time. Just realize that nothing is wasted, and that we will all come out of this stronger.
Hey, welcome to Revive Ministries Livestream. This month, we are continuing the journey of live streaming. I know it's a learning curve, but right now we're planning for this month to do one each week. And why are we doing this? Why are we here today? We are here today to talk about reflecting and healing through a storm. Everyone's been facing COVID-19, and a few months back, that recording, and that is a guest who's going to be coming to share with us today. That was done during May, and May was Mental Health Month. And I just, right now we're still in COVID-19. Next month is September. It's a very special month. I'm getting married, but also previously years back, I continued doing the suicide awareness concert and stuff like that at my church at the time. And for me, it's very reflective. Why is this important? And that's what we're going to talk about and reflect on healing through a storm. I always like to start off the live stream with a disclaimer, and I'll just say this. If you are in crisis, I say, please seek immediate medical attention. If you're in the United States right now, there's always the the crisis suicide National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's open 24 hours, and English and Spanish, and the number is right below. I encourage each one of you to get help if you need it right now. But I also like to also share with you a quote, and the quote reads, it's from Stephen R. Covey, and it says, "Our greatest joy and our greatest pain comes in our relationships with others." You know, I just want to also say I'm very blessed to actually have a lot of people wanting to be and to share. And no different than today, we have a returning guest, Robert Gallant. He's been in the podcast. Now he's a live stream guest. And I just want to say thank you. And here he is. Thank you, Robert, for being a live stream guest with us today.
It's always my pleasure to be a part of what God is doing through you, through this ministry, to reach everyone.
Yeah, and it's interesting because right now we're still in the thick of it. I remember talking to you way back when I was doing the Robert's Corner series, and it's I'm still doing the podcast, but it's just we talk about relationships. I want to get your input. What does this quote mean to you? In short.
Well, I think the reason why there can be so much joy and also so much pain in relationships, because a true relationship requires open honesty and vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And when you can find those moments and find those jewels of people that you can be open and vulnerable to and receive unconditional love, a lack of judgment, and a safe place to talk, there's joy there.
Yeah.
But there's also pain, because when you're vulnerable to people, they'll be feeling the pain that you're going through if they are an empathetic soul. Mm-hmm. And there's also pain if you have the inability to be vulnerable with people and build that circle of people that you can communicate with and receive that feedback back and forth in an unconditional, loving manner. So that's what that quote speaks to me, at least at this point in my life.
I like what you're saying. Relationships, I feel today, I feel it more. There's obviously some unhealthy ideas out there when it comes to social distancing, and I'm not saying we have to be mindful of those who are out there wearing the mask, being extra vigilant, but at the same time, it doesn't mean we don't connect, and there's a difference. I think I remember one of my podcast guests said it's more like physically distancing and being aware that there's something that is happening all around the world, and for us, it's a conflict in our brains because, like you said, relationships matter, and when we begin to realize that and stop saying that they don't matter, then we get the realization of what priorities are in our lives. You mentioned that safe place, and I love that model because the thing is, a safe place is a wonderful thing. It's a place where I could have a pie in my face moment, and it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I want to go ahead, Rob.
It's just pie in the face. It'll wash right off.
One of my guests in the podcast also said this a lot. We are not islands, and right now, it may seem that we are because we're all kind of hermits now at home, but the blessing of technology, we are able to at least connect in some way or form. And I don't know, like this train of thought of relationships. And one other thing that I also found was helpful in my recovery is not focusing on what I didn't have, but focusing on what I did. What do I have? And there's a lot of blessings that I do have. I remember a lot, in AA and a lot of counseling that I've been through. Gratitude journals are a real thing, and they do work. They do work when you write them down and you start writing down the things that you're grateful for. And I found that what are your thoughts on this, Robert, when it comes to gratitude and on the idea of, relationships and how that ties in?
Well, I think gratitude is always important, of course, but at least for me recently, I realized that I had a lot of people in my life that I didn't even I wasn't even aware that cared about me so much.
Mm.
And sometimes gratefulness can be gratitude to something you don't even know is there until
Yeah.
you need it. And then when you realize, wow, I have this circle of people that are just willing to cover me in prayers, good vibes, encouragement. And it's just such an amazing feeling to realize that things to be grateful for are always there. You just have to look for them.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of things. One thing I realized when I was growing up, especially now, is that there are people in our lives, and I know that we've talked about this before, Robert, that I could never pay back. This idea of paying back for what people have done to help me in my recovery or help me along the way, I could never pay them back. But you know what? It's okay. When you get to the point when that's okay, then you can have pie in your face moments with the people that are important to you, that you care about. I feel that's where you kind of find healing in the storm. Because I know we talked about this before, Robert. Us being in recovery, the idea of uncertainty is familiar in their own little bubbles. But I'm not trying to minimize what the whole world is going through, but I would say there's a lot of healing that could be going on right now. And for me, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, gosh, I have a lot of thoughts on that. You know, I guess it depends on your outlook.
Mm-hmm.
And, I talked about time before. That was in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
introductory video. And we could be using this time to complain, be bitter, get
Mhm.
mad about having to wear a mask to go food shopping, or the lack of toilet paper in the store, or a billion other things to be
Mhm.
bitter about. Or you could be using this time to be focusing on recovery and maybe even finding some new tools for your recovery instead of relying on the old ones. Find some new tool for your arsenal. There's just so many different ways right now to reach out to people. Zoom meetings. A lot of recovery places are having Zoom meetings now instead of live meetings. And like you said, this can be a time of great healing, but it can also be a time of great hurt. And I think
Yeah.
it depends really on what you are taking into your mind, body, and spirit and soul, whether it's reading, watching videos, looking
Mhm.
at nature, anything, the news, whatever the case may be, searching for that positive light to let
Yeah.
it shine through.
There's this saying that I've been kind of trapped in my head. Good news is in life is only as good as the bad news was. Like it's kind of clunky how to say it, but it makes sense because like I make this illustration. If I lost 50 cents and I got it back, that's good news, but it's not great news. It's good news. I'm not trying to measure, but like for us, we're all in this, this storm. But when you kind of look at gratitude, you kind of look at forgiveness, and you kind of look at that we have a roof over our head. We are being fed. We're and I'm not saying I'm saying that's not always the case for a lot of people, but a lot of people forget. And for me, I feel like we have to remember. We have to remember that bad news that was to appreciate the good news that is, if that makes sense. So,
Exactly.
so the reason why this month I'm really trying to hone in on reflecting. We talked about healing, but reflecting is because like I would mention, Mental Health Month was in May. Now it's August. September is National Suicide Prevention Week, which is observed on the 7th through the 12th. And I think the actual international day is on the 10th of September. And also, I didn't even know this, but The National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month is also in September. So it's like we were there. I remember having Robert on the podcast, and I thought I was compelled. It was Mental Health Month. Me being a peer myself, I felt it was important that we talk about, especially today. Like especially during that time. It's been a couple months. We're still in COVID. I remember people. I'm getting married in September. People are like, "Oh, it'll get better. It's a long ways away." It hasn't. It really hasn't. And for me, that's okay, because I remember for me, moving forward, I feel people a lot of times gets trapped in the idea of a cure, a quick fix, but there's no growth in that. There's no, and like for me, I try to emphasize and concentrate on the healing, because a lot of us, like I say, I remember this quote I want to share with you. I don't have it on the screen, but it's from Rachel Naomi Remen. It says, "The willingness to consider possibility requires the tolerance of uncertainty." It's just, there is, I feel, it says a lot when we're here, and people are struggling and they don't know, face to face may be not as available, but there are other ways. But I feel people always find reasons, just like myself, to say what I can't do. And it even surprises me that I do anything sometimes, because there's so many reasons not to do something, because you're trying to be careful. You're trying not to fail. But really, like, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on this, Robert? I want to allow you to share what you thought of what I've been talking about.
Well, your quote that you shared, it actually brings to mind a thought process that I have, especially during the season of storms, is that no matter how many clouds are in the sky, no matter how many thunderstorms there may be, whatever the case may be, the sun is always shining behind those clouds, and
Mm-hmm.
it will eventually break through and shine the light. The
Mm-hmm.
clouds can't last forever. They're passing through the sky, and they will soon, hopefully soon, wither away to let that that sun shine through. Excuse me there. But I also want to share a recent experience I had, which was totally awesome. Not totally awesome, but it was one light that I was able to look into this circumstance. My wife was recently hospitalized for about a week. It was very, very hard on my family. And because of the panic attack disorder and anxiety disorder that I live with, I had a fear of bridges and highways. I could not get on them. I would almost lose my vision and black out whenever I would try to attempt that. But while my wife was in the hospital, I had no choice. I had an appointment that I needed to take care of north of the river.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get in that car, drive down the highway, drive over the bridge to get this done. And I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as if I had no fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only explain that, for me, I'm a Christian, and I believe that God gave me the strength to do that. And it was a win. It was a
Mm-hmm.
win. It was a bright spot during the dark clouds of my wife's hospitalization. And I think that matches up perfectly with what you said, is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If I canceled that necessary appointment and didn't drive over that bridge, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have had the confidence that I do now, and the
Yeah.
ability to travel further than I was prior to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to, we were talking about cure, and one thing that's unfortunate about the idea, I'm not saying cure is bad in any way, but cure, unfortunately, at times promotes the idea of a quick fix. Losing someone in your life has no quick fix. Finding out you have terminal illness has no quick fix. And, for me, I feel right now the cloud of uncertainty can be real for a lot of us. But I remember this one thing that um, I, no, you shared that. I was talking about this quote right here. It was from Rachel Naomi Remen. It says, "Healing may not be so much about getting better as about letting go of everything that isn't you, all the expectations, all the beliefs, and becoming who you are." I know um, I am not, this is a learning curve with live streaming, and that's okay. I know that I'll continue to grow and learn, and that's okay. Because the thing is, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to make mistakes. And when you stop willing to make mistakes and you try to build walls to prevent sadness or something to happen, this is what happens. The walls we build around us to keep sadness or pain or anything that keeps out the joy. Because every relationship, we're going back to relationship, is a risk. Because you have to be vulnerable. And what does vulnerability make you? Prone to be hurt. I care about someone. She doesn't care about me as much. Our goals in life doesn't align, and that's you learn from that. But when you find that special someone, family members, spouse, whoever that appreciates you and supports you for who you are, whether you make a mistake or not, and sees that your value doesn't go down if you make a mistake, that's huge because that allows you to grow because we learn more from our failures than from our successes. So I don't know. Like I like this idea of reflecting because we're in the middle of it right now. People could get lost in it. They could get complacent. They could get lukewarm. They could it doesn't matter and minimize it. But I refuse to do that because the people I care about, I do care about. I will get hurt. I'll get vulnerable, but I'd rather do that than blind myself to the idea that I don't care because I do care. And for me, it was a lot of pain, and that pain, Robert. That we have when we struggle to find peace back the value that we felt we lost through our recovery. How many people in my life have said what I couldn't do? How many people were so worried and trying to protect me, which was really harming my recovery? At the end of the day, I feel the value we get is really never left us. It's just sometimes we lose sight of what's important. And here we are today, reflecting on a situation that affects all of us in different ways. And I just want to, I shared those two quotes. I want to give you an opportunity, Robert, to kind of wrap up, some of your thoughts of this whole pandemic, what you think you have learned from it, reflecting back, what would you like to see be better, not only for yourself, but also what are you striving for? Because the thing is, if you just got complacent, if everything's just meh, if everything's just like gray, I feel like that's complacency, and that in itself is death in your goals, and you kind of minimize your own existence. And then what happens? You lose your value. So I encourage each one of us to be bold, but just try to be 1% better than the last day. So, so Robert, anything you want to share?
I've learned a lot during this COVID-19 crisis. For the longest time, I was concentrating on the news, whatever was being shared on Facebook, frightful, fearful stories. I was focusing on the clouds, and I didn't realize it, but I was slowly losing my hope in myself and my potential, which was it was very hard, and it took my wife's hospitalization. While she was in the hospital, I made some bad choices, and I slipped back into a couple of old bad coping skills that I utilized back in the day. Luckily and thankfully, I bounced back quickly because of the fact that I know that this quote here, the walls we build around us to keep sadness out also keeps out the joy. I reached out to people that I knew cared about me, some that I didn't even know still cared about me, that I haven't talked to in ages.
Mm-hmm.
And they covered me with encouragement, love, acceptance, non judgmentalism, and helped me to see my worth again and spark a light of joy in me. And it's those people that we need to treasure that can help you see the light that lies behind the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is my number one supporter. She is my angel, and we can be completely vulnerable with each other and not have to worry about judgment. And that is a prize from God that I will never be ungrateful for and never take for granted. And it's just amazing that through this process and through this whole COVID-19 thing, I've learned to refocus and concentrate, even though I may not see the sun behind the clouds, to know it's there, to get back into my healthy coping skills. For me, that's reading the Bible, celebrate recovery. I also love to write. I've written a few books. I plan to write another one very soon. And it's just been a process. And I think that's where the healing comes, is in the process. We go back to the quick fix, the cure. There is no immediate cure
Mm-hmm.
for anything. It
Mm-hmm.
takes time. Even if you go to the doctors and you have to get treated for an illness, it's not a one-time shot and you're healthy. You have to go through the regimen. You have to go through the course of antibiotics or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You have to stick with the plan, and you have to have that goal in sight to really guide you. There's a Bible verse that I love. I can't remember where exactly it is, but it says, "Where there is a lack of vision, the people perish." Um, and I don't say that to exclude anyone. That's just my personal belief in Christianity. But I do believe that is true. If you don't have vision for the future, um, your spirit's going to perish, and you're going to lose that hope. And it's always important to see the light of your potential without the burden of others' expectations of you. You know what you should do. If someone says, "Hey, you're good at this, you should do this," um, and if it doesn't resonate with your heart and you do it anyway, you're going to grow
Yeah.
in bitterness and feel like, I don't want to do this. This is not what I was meant to do. And for me, that has been a process that's been working in my life during this whole COVID-19 crisis, and has been really helping me to stand on my own 2 feet and make some decisions about the direction that I would like to see my family's life take in the near to distant future, regardless of what happens. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Yeah.
We don't know.
And I like when you said the whole should and shouldn't. You know, for me in my recovery, even if it's good advice, Robert, it's beautiful when your recovery gets to the point when should becomes what I want to do.
Hmm.
You know, you talked about just not having direction, or no, like I'm using a different word, but it reminds me what I always mention about Viktor Frankl and him being a Jew during World War II, and what he saw in the people who survived in the concentration camps was that they had hope.
Hmm.
That was it. You can't live your life, at least from my experience, just constantly trying to protect yourself, constantly trying to control every situation. There has to be hope. There has to be light at the end of the tunnel, because it's just the why. Well, I remember Viktor Frankl said it somewhat this way. I'm paraphrasing. If you have a why in your life, the how gets bearable. That's what he saw with his fellow Jews in the concentration camp. If you had doubt, if your whole thing was that you were bitter, if you talked about what you didn't have instead of what you did, it provides no room for healing. You know, this whole thing about reflecting and what I've learned in COVID was that what's really important. What is really important. We live in the age where, in we live in an age where the products, technology is so competitive. Everything's so there's such a small margin, and for me, like it's great, but it's also shows a little bit about the human condition that we are people who need to share. I myself am Christian too, and I like it because it gives me direction and purpose in a way that I never thought I could, because it's bigger than myself. But one thing that really sticks to me, and this is, it says in the Bible, but it's also a thought that I think is very freeing and has helped me even before I was a Christian, was Jesus came down here to serve, not to be served. And for me, that's because he needed to share, because you can't share if you're taking it from everyone else. So with that thought, I found that when I started serving others, when I started caring and helping others, not because of anything, just to help, I found that provided room for me to heal. It was reflective, helping others, serving others with respect to boundaries, of course. I'm not doing this overwork, but I found incredibly healing and an incredibly good process, because you begin to see how much, in our perspective, how much God has blessed us. But in another way, you could say, if you're non-Christian or you're just, is that how all the good things that you have, your gratitude for what you have right now. I feel that provides room to heal when you're grateful, when you forgive people who've wronged you. That, like you said, the process of healing, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And for me, I found that reflectively, looking back at COVID has been incredibly useful and helpful moving forward. We talked about, you shared your last thoughts, but you also mentioned to me that you have a website. It's Robert Gallant Communications. You want to talk about that a little bit?
This is just a website I put together. It showcases some of the books that I've written, and also, some of the services I provide, help with communication, public speaking, stuff along those lines. And it's just a resource that it was a project of mine.
Yes.
And it continues to grow, just like your podcast is a learning process.
Yeah.
This is also a learning process. And I'm a take charge kind of guy. So when I was having problems finding work because of my felony, I decided to just make my own website and start writing books. And share. A lot of my Bible devotionals, most of them are available for free on the YouVersion Bible app. So that's and it goes back to that, when you share of yourself and empty yourself, not to the point of depriving yourself of the strength you need, but when you pour yourself out, you're going to get poured right back into. It's a basic law of the universe, whether you believe in Christianity or not. It's just a proven fact that does happen. And it's just a great feeling to be able to share hope, inspiration, encouragement, love, and the list of adjectives could go on and on.
One thing that this podcast and even COVID has helped me is listening. The one quote said, the one thing that everyone think was it communication. I forget. It's like, but basically it says that the lie that people, the thing that people think that communication happens, it basically plays on the idea that a lot of us feel that we communicate well, but a lot of times communication doesn't even occur. You know what I mean? We just talk at each other because we feel it's so important to be right. And for me, that doesn't really provide a digestible and a safe place, like we mentioned before, model, and then we're all striving for the same piece of the pie. Yeah, and for me, that's not very conducive, especially nowadays. I feel like right now, for me, I find that the healing of this, realizing how important my relationships are, how I am not an island, and how I need each and every one of them. I just want to say thank you, Robert, for agreeing to be a guest, a live stream guest with us today. We're going to be doing, like I said in the beginning, we're going to be doing a live stream every week this month. I'm trying to get a guest each weekend. Robert is no stranger to Revive Ministries, and I hope to see him again. But I want to encourage those who are watching. I'm still doing the podcast. I'll probably this month will be using the audio from the live stream and posting an episode for the podcast, but it will continue this month each week. September, I'm planning to do 2 major compilations for those who know the podcast. Also, if you are interested in finding out more about our live streams, these will be in the notes also, just so you know. But these are where you can find them. These are the channels on my Facebook page and on my YouTube channel. I just want to say thank you again, Robert. It's been a pleasure. This is goodbye from Revive Ministry live stream. We will leave you with this quote. Don't fear failure so much that you refuse to try new things. The saddest summary of life contains 3 descriptions: could have, might have, should have. Louis E. Boone. So, till next time.